Thank you, Cannon, for that extremely kind and gracious introduction. I guess one thing I'll say about the fact that Cannon just gave that introduction is it's now proof positive that we are, in fact, two different people. You'd be surprised how few people know that. There's been more than one occasion at the Supreme Court, I kid you not, where the day after Cannon's given an argument, people have come up to me in the hallways and said, "I thought you did a great job yesterday." And I thought it was probably a little bit rude to tell them that they were wrong, and I humbly accepted their comment on my brilliant performance the day before. And it's not just Cannon and I, but Pratik Shah also, who's sitting at the same table. He and I have been confused from one another as well. In fact, so much so that earlier this year, Pratik argued a case at which I was actually sitting at counsel table with him because I was the deputy on the case and Pratik was the assistant. And literally, immediately after the argument, I went over to the hallway elevator to go downstairs, and somebody who had seen the argument came up to me and said, "I thought you did a fantastic job today," even though I was sitting literally right next to Pratik. So either somebody thinks that there's one Indian who's arguing a lot of cases at the Supreme Court, or a few Indians who are each arguing several. But regardless, I think it's a wonderful commentary on where we are in this profession. I mean, I think in some ways it's a wonderful commentary on where we are in society because it wasn't too long ago that the law was just not a field in which we were present. And I know I can say firsthand, give a little anecdote about this. When I went to the Solicitor General's office the very first time, and this was as a summer intern in the Solicitor General's office, my parents started to receive a wealth of congratulatory phone calls. And you know the deal. Everybody in this audience knows the deal. The Indian American Network, the South Asian Network with parents, they're calling each other. In my day, it was calling. They're calling each other, bragging on their kids. And so my parents tried to brag on me by telling everybody that my son has arrived. He's going to the Solicitor General's office. And thus far, I was a young lawyer, and they usually sent out these sorts of messages and received a chorus of kind of yawns in response. Well, he's a lawyer. He's not a doctor or an engineer. You know, what has he really done? But this time, they started getting some really overwhelming enthusiastic responses. And it was a little bit puzzling as to why that was the case because nobody knew what the Solicitor General did. But then it became evident, and some of you are going to be too young to understand this, but then it became evident because we finally got a call where somebody told my dad, "You must be so proud of your son. I've heard that C. Everett Koop is a fantastic Solicitor General." Now, he was the Surgeon General, and so people thought that I'd finally arrived because I was in a career in medicine, but it turned out I was in a career in law. But we've made tremendous strides in the law, and I don't know if this figure has been quoted yet, but it's one of my favorite figures as a little indicia of where we are as a community in the law. It's a narrow corner of the universe, those of us who've had the privilege of practicing before the Supreme Court. But before 2001, I believe there was only one South Asian to have ever argued in the Supreme Court, and that was Preeta Bansal, who is a pioneer, obviously, in her own right. In the rough decade since then, there have been over 70 arguments delivered by South Asian attorneys, including Cannon and Pratik and myself and several others, Ray Cardozo, Neil Katyal, Preeta herself, Mark Fleming, Deepak Gupta. So I think that's a really profound statement about where we are as a profession in the law. And let me say one other thing about some people who are here on the table with me, Pratik, Cannon, and Preet. The four of us are sitting together today, but the four of us were also together at my hearing. And that really means a great deal to me. It shows solidarity and camaraderie in the community. And the fact that these individuals with their distinguished stature would take the time to attend my hearing says volumes about their professionalism and their grace. And it's not just them. It's not just them, it's several others of you in the room as well. And I have to say that this is one aspect of the process that I did not appreciate when it started. The support and the interest of the South Asian community has been overwhelming for me and my family. And it's really, really a meaningful part of this, and I will never forget it. And you all were there at the hearing. You were in the overflow room. You were watching on the web. And that really means a great deal to me. And so, Nasaba, I thank you so much for your support and your encouragement throughout this process. And it's Nasaba, it's the South Asian community more generally, it's Napaba, it's the Asian community more generally. many, many, many individuals and entities were associated with this process, and I'm deeply grateful for that. The last thing I'll say is this award is called the Pioneer Award. It's hard for me in these couple of weeks to talk about a pioneer without thinking about another pioneer from my own family. My father passed away pretty recently, the last few days, and in fact today I was down in Palo Alto doing some services for him with my family. When we think about pioneers, I think we are fooling ourselves if we think we're pioneers because of what we have done since we've been in this country. The true pioneers are the ones who paved the way for us to be here, and my dad is one of those. He brought me and my sisters here when we were very young in search of opportunity for us. And I want to accept this award in his honor today because he was a true pioneer. The obstacles he had to overcome, he and my mother, to bring us here, to show us the opportunities that this great country affords are unthinkable, I think, for many of us in the room. And one of the last things he said to me, he was in declining health for some time. It got to a point as of a few weeks ago where he could barely talk except in a barely audible whisper. And I knew that, and my kids and I went to see him a couple of weeks ago. And one of the very last things he said to me was he whispered into my ear. He said, 97-0, how did you do that? And it was characteristic of my dad. He's one who takes great pride. He's one who takes great pride in the accomplishments of his children. Our dreams were his dreams, and our ambitions were his ambitions. And had I been more foresighted and had I thought in a little more sophisticated fashion, I would have had the perfect response for him, which is that I didn't do that. He did. He did it. It's because of the opportunities he afforded. It's the opportunities he afforded. It's the values that he instilled. And it's the example that he set. And he's my pioneer. And I'd like to accept this award on his behalf this evening. And I think all of us should salute our parents for the pioneering job that they've done with us. And we owe it to future generations to do the same. Thank you very, very much.